Oh, for a minute I thought we weren't going to go live, and then it came up across the screen. You are live.
Yeah.
Hello, welcome to another Wow Ergonomics. We got 45 minutes of ergonomic excellence coming up for you. So hang on to your wheelie chair or whatever it is that you're sitting on. Bounce around your room on your physio ball and enjoy the next 45 minutes as we talk about some of the things that have been going on in the world of work and ergonomics, funnily enough, because that's otherwise what would be the point of calling it Well Ergonomics. And what a week it has been. As I said in the kind of preamble to this, incredible week in terms of some of the stuff that's happened. We've made note of some of these things. And we will be looking at some of these. So the first thing I want to talk about today is a post that was on the BBC earlier in the week, and it was firms in 4-day week trial will make it permanent.
Which again, when you, and I know we're going to touch on this in a minute, flies in the face of what we've just read this morning, Graham, doesn't it? On another BBC article, which talks around productivity and managers versus employees and their perception of productivity. So it's a great article earlier in the week about organizations trialing 4 days and going to stick with it. But then by the end of the week, we've got another bit of research, which I think was from Microsoft, saying that 80% of managers think their employees are less productive based at home.
Yeah.
So
that was the one. That was the one that someone posted on LinkedIn this morning.
Yeah.
And I'm
that was
really.
Me. That was
that
me.
was you.
I posted that. Yeah.
That was you. Look at you doing it.
Guilty.
There you are. You almost need this to go into that. That set the dog off.
Awesome.
And here's the news with Stephen.
The thing is, though, this 4-day week thing's quite interesting because I always wonder, organizations themselves, I mean, maybe they do they then just no one turn up on a Friday, or does it mean that everyone only works 4 days and you get to choose a day off in the week? Because that's the interesting thing as to how that whole sort of evolves, isn't it, really, and how it plays out and works in practicality.
Well, it would be interesting to hear from any of the inclusion and diversity specialists on this. And I know we've got a little bit coming up later on from Jodie yet again. But for me, this is yet again a nightmare, right? Because I don't know about you, but sometimes in a week, I don't feel that 5 days is enough. All right. I actually feel sometimes in a week that I'm struggling over 5 days to get stuff done. Right. The issue with the 4-day week is, does 4 days a week actually suit everybody? And does it actually lead to a better lifestyle? What are we saving by? And that's the question we have to ask. What are we actually saving by going to 4 days? Are we thinking, well, it's better if we have another day in the week when we don't work, and when should that day be? Should that be in the middle of the week, or should that be an elongated weekend? Now, we know, because we've had quite a lot of them this year, that what it feels like to have an elongated weekend, because we've had a lot of bank holidays.
Yeah.
Now,
we've had 2 extra bank holidays, haven't we, this year?
We've had 2 extras. So you could say that there has been a national experiment going on to see what it's like to have a 4-day week. Has it made it better for you every time you've had a 4-day week, Stephen? Do you actually feel that you've benefited from having that extra day's holiday?
I found this week, obviously we had a public holiday, bank holiday on Monday. I don't feel as if this week's ever actually got going. It's been quite activity, noise, emails, phone calls, meetings, things like that. I found this week hasn't really got started, and it's now Friday. Right. So that sort of if you're talking about a national experiment, is, you know, because people wouldn't have, you wouldn't have expected people on the back of why we had a public holiday on Monday to add extra holiday on, like they would normally on a May bank holiday or Easter. But it just seems as if it hasn't really got started, and almost this week sort of gone. So it then makes you think, if you start rolling that out, how does that impact things working forward if people are going to do 4 days a week? Do you get more weeks that just sort of don't actually get started and the week's gone, and what's happened to that week? That's my only concern. Is it I don't know. 5 days, it's given you a longer period to get into things. Does 4 days just sort of keep cutting you off in your prime, as it were, every week?
Well, as I say, my concern is, you know, does it actually work? Because in order to do the 4 days, does it actually mean what you do is you then actually build the longer hours into the 4 days so that you're actually working more time? Because, you know, our company's going to say, actually, it's about the amount of hours that you work, and therefore, you know, all you're going to do with the 4 days is you're going to, rather than work from 9 till 5, you're going to work from, you know, 7 until 8 or whatever over less days, in which case, so you're working longer days then in order to have the holiday. Or does it mean that, you know, people, or are we actually talking about getting to a point where we're saying doesn't really matter how you get the work done, as long as you get the work done? Now, if that's the case, if we're actually talking about flexible working, then why are we talking about a 4-day week? Surely it should be more to do with companies going, I'm okay with the fact that some of my people want to stay in the office longer. Some of them want to go home. Some of them want to just work from home. Some of them want to work in the office. Some of them want to do it this way. Some of them want to do it that way. And actually, what I'm going to do is make sure that there's the systems and the support and everything else in place to enable everybody to work the way they need to work in order for us to get the outcome that we need.
See, the 4-day week, you mentioned there about the way it's called. It reminds me of that phrase from the 70s, which it was called the 3-day week, wasn't it? When there was, you know, huge economic issues. I'm just thinking here from me, and I can only relate necessarily to my job, is that if you were to go to, let's say, for example, you only work Monday to Thursday that week. Some of the people who I work with, be they customers, be they suppliers, be they manufacturers, if they're working a 5-day week, I might be asking for a piece of information from them that they can't get me until the Friday. But I've worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So then it goes along till the Monday till something can be addressed. So I'm just trying to relate it to what I do. And the flexi bit would be better in terms of maybe you could do your hours at different times. The one bit that rigidity of 4 days, I'm not sure whether that would necessarily work for me as an individual. I'm thinking you then extrapolate that out with other people around, you know, the economy. Would it be the same for them? I mean, look, oh, Trooper didn't agree.
I do not know what set him off. No. I might have to put him out. There we go.
Okay.
We'll just see how we go.
There we go. So, I mean, I'm thinking about you, Graham, as from a self-employed perspective. Non-starter?
Absolutely non-starter. Yeah, just think about what I do. Think about the fact that people. I'm going to have to put.
Looks like Trooper's being taken out to the shed or into the garden. So, oh no, he's back. He's just gone out the room. Hello, Graham.
This always happens. This always happens, right? He's been sat there all morning, good as gold, not making a sound. There's nobody downstairs. There's nobody come to the door. The wind has blowed or something like that, and the dog goes off. Sorry about that, everybody. No, it's a non-starter as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if people want to post Monday to Friday on social media, I need to produce content for them Monday to Friday on social media, right? If we're trying to look at what we're trying to do here in terms of like putting together live content, etc. If we want to try and get somebody on to talk about something, it's hard enough anyway with 5 days in the week, right? Yeah. In fact, we've just lost our guest this morning.
I know. I've just seen he can't. Technical problems, I believe, at his end. So.
Oh, really? Was it technical problems?
I think so. Yes.
Oh, right. Okay. But we've lost our guest this morning. Anyone else wants to come on, do let us know. But you know, and because people struggle to find time with 5 days a week. But if you then suddenly truncate that down to, oh well, I'm working 4 days a week, and there's variance in that as well, then that just becomes really difficult to try and organize. Anybody that's organizing any event, anybody that's organizing any kind of webinar or activity like that, how does that work? How does that fit in if people are around less?
I think for certain, and I can't, top of my head, there must be certain industries or certain job roles where it will work. I think in a lot of jobs, when I'm looking from like you, self-employed, social media, sales, etc., that unavailability on a rigid 4-day week, I think would cause problems. The interesting thing you mentioned, Graham, there was the flex bit. That is a whole different ball game, and I think that's maybe where we should be focusing on, is the flexible working, rather than saying you're working 1 day less. It'd be really interesting, and it's really short notice and she's not around, but someone like Nicola Pease, who to come on and talk around sort of flexible working. She's our sort of resident flexible working expert, isn't she? Be great to get her along at some point and kick a few ideas and discussions around with her.
I'd also love to hear from anybody that's in a job where these conversations just can't happen. I drive a bus. I'm a train driver. I don't know, even a builder on a building site, right?
Yeah.
What? So you're going to get halfway through a roof and you go, well, do you know what? Wednesdays, we don't work Wednesdays. Really?
And actually, they probably just can't necessarily add on the hours in a day, and there'll be certain jobs where there'll be limitations. I'm thinking things like HGV drivers, etc., where you can't just do 2 hours extra a day.
You can't drive for an extra 4 hours one day.
Yeah,
because you've got a tachometer and it's going to tell you to stop.
And if you need to do daily deliveries, what are you going to do? Oh, we're not delivering on Fridays. You're going to get nothing from it. As I say, certain occupations, it may work. I'm just thinking, and we're just coming up with ideas here where I'm thinking, I don't see how it's going to work for a lot of sectors. As you say, the flex bit is a whole different ball game. The two need to be sort of separated. They're two very separate issues and conversations, aren't they?
Yeah, I just wonder, and this is where I'm going back to with this, I just wonder who's driving it. Because for me, if you're going to ask the question, should we have a 4-day week? Why are you not asking the question, should we have a 6-day week?
Yeah.
Right? I'm just being devil's advocate there. But I'm just thinking, where's the criteria come from that we now need to move to 4 days? If you feel that this is from a health and well-being benefit point of view, because a shorter week gives people a rest or gives people a break. Ultimately, I don't see that it's going to happen, because I think people are just going to work crammed hours in other parts of the week, and actually it probably make them more stressed. Who's going to do
Graham,
the school run?
And exactly how many of them will then still log on day 5 because something didn't get done, or they were concerned about. And think about organisations who run team meetings. If you've got people if you're working a 4-day week, you've then got to think, well, on some days, we're going to have a team meeting on Monday. But it's Bob and Sid's day off Monday because that's their day off for their 4-day week, and I can see it just causing a lot more problems.
Now it fits in with that second story about Microsoft saying that people working from home are not being as productive. Naughty people, what are you doing? how do they know that?
Yeah.
That was the immediate thing that I said, which is how do they know that? Now, it always, strikes me when I hear that a story like that, and then there's a software company that have got their software on most people's computers at the helm of that. Is that doing something to track what people are doing that we don't necessarily know about? Right? Are they actually looking at? Are they looking at? Figures of activity and going, people are not being so active. Also, where are the figures for that activity as well? Going back to what we just said, are people, if they're working from home, working in more flexible time periods? So say you had software on and it was tracking people, but you set that software tracking and you say, I'm going to look at online cloud-based activity on our piece of software from Monday at 8 o'clock to Friday at whatever, right? Would it be missing, people logging in on a Saturday or a Sunday and doing work? Would it miss people doing work in the evening, right? Or is it just, is it actually taking the data from all of the time?
I do think with that survey, Graham, do you wonder if it was a yes and no? So we're going to ask employees, do you think you are more productive at home, yes or no? Well, yes. Their natural instinct is to tick yes. Managers, do you think your staff are equally productive at home? I'd say they're more likely to be slightly skeptical and therefore will lead towards the no answer. So did it just actually draw out the natural reaction of people?
It might have done. Might have just been that rubbish, to be honest. And in which case, it's kind of meaningless data. Another really interesting fact about it is that the press are actually looking for this information all the time. We have a comment.
We do.
Lovely. Hello.
Tegan.
I used to work in service industry, and I think for people working within those roles that don't get the benefits of home working, flexible working, the offering of a 4-day working week could be a really great solution. Additionally, with regards to office workers providing set days that people can't book their 3rd day off. So that's quite interesting. It'd be interesting to know what service industry you worked in. So maybe certain service industries, it's a great benefit. So
and that's why we're saying, and what we touched on before, we started kicking ideas around about HGV drivers and people like yourself who are sort of self-employed. It's going to work in certain areas, and Tegan's come up with a great point around the service sector that we wouldn't have touched. Wouldn't naturally have come to us because maybe they're not the industries in which we operate. But it would be really interesting to sort of get lots of different people with their thoughts as to would it work in construction, how would it work in finance, how would it work in service, all those sort of things. It's such a wide conversation, isn't it? And it'd be interesting, as you say, to hear from these businesses where it has worked and understand exactly A, what sector are they in, but B, what are they doing to cover that mysterious day 5, as it were? How are they covering that? Are they just expecting everyone does more on the 4 days and you have to cover the fact that every day somebody's not in? So as you say, does it create additional pressure in days 1 to 4 that actually people go, well, do you know what? I preferred it when the work was a bit more smoothed out over 5 days.
What I'd really love to see, and what would be really interesting, is to know whether it's actually any of these things that we've seen, any of these kind of new revolutions in terms of working, whether that's made any difference to anybody out there in terms of their actual contracts of employment, or whether it's kind of something that's spoken about and is being allowed to happen, but doesn't then necessarily come back on the contract side of things, because that's going to be the big thing in here is, are we going to get to a point where we actually see employers go, do you know what? There's 7 days in a week. This is the job that you need to do. These are the tasks that you need to do. These are the objectives and key results that I want. I don't care when you do it. and I'm going to put that in black and white in a contract.
Yeah.
Because until that happens, in a way, it's kind of rhetoric at the front end, but ultimately, I mean, how many people in business, and I know this myself from conversations that happen in this house, and we've now got various people in this house working, how many people in business know what is said know what's said in their contract in terms of work, but actually know what's expected of them in order for them to keep their job, right? You know,
yeah.
or you know, their contract actually says in black and white, you will be expected to do this, and actually it goes above and beyond what actually they need to do most of the time, but it's still there in black and white, just in case the employer thinks on an occasion, well, actually, we can ask you to come in on this day of the week and do this, because you know that's the reality of it. I think a lot of people. Why do we see this? Why do we see this behaviour in the workplace of people being scared to work in a particular way? It's ultimately because they feel that there's going to be a threat to their job if they don't put in the extra that's not even equated for, right? And I think it's really interesting that the press are making such a big deal of this, really, because it's you know it's really changing.
But I wonder what, you know, you start thinking and you start rolling out a bit further, Graham. I wonder what the impact would be on the wider economy. We've already seen an impact on things like use of public transport post-COVID, or even during and post-COVID, around people working from home and the number of the footfall reduction.
Yeah.
If people started doing 4-day weeks, does that impact it even more? Because you've got even less requirement for services, less requirement for coffee shops. So actually, does it then start, whilst you know home working has had an impact on those support services around people going to the office, but would that make it even worse? Would that have an even wider impact, that actually someone can do their hours in 4 days and not 5, and therefore that extra journey is not required? Obviously, it then has the benefits from a sustainability, environmental perspective. So there's so many things to consider. You start going down one train of thought and you suddenly get pulled another direction, don't you?
I think an interesting thing to comment on that is I had a conversation yesterday as part of another podcast that we do at the moment that I'm involved with, which is about accountancy growth, and it was conversation with a large organization who are within the accountancy sector, and they're actually beginning to specialize and move away, if you like, from being known as a strict accountancy practice. But I wanted to get in a little bit of a question about culture change and what's happening from an office perspective, because they have learned how to work asynchronously over the pandemic. They've learned to work with the majority of the time they do work with their clients remotely, because it's what the clients want. So I asked them about their office space, and they said, yeah, they are beginning to look at how they use the office space and redesign the office space, and it's much more around how can we use it in a more creative way, in a more collaborative way, maybe not using and not maybe making it work so that not everybody's using it every day of the week, or there are set days when people do use it, and if they are using it, it's used in a different way. So I think these conversations are being had all the time in businesses at the moment, and maybe, and you know, it comes back to what I was saying, what we were saying all the way through the pandemic, which is, I think, in order to support the infrastructure around businesses, office spaces just have to become much more flexible, and they have to perhaps offer offer something to more businesses as well. I think there's loads of people would love an office space in the middle of London, right? But they don't want to pay for it every day of the week.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, if you've got premium office space in a city or something, what, you know, do you really need it all of the time? Can you share it out?
Which it's like flexible hours, flexible offices, isn't it? The whole thing then just becomes flexible. The need for that, the need for the office and the need for the worker to be Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 in a set location has gone, isn't it? So as you say, you know, we've seen lots of organizations offering sort of flexible workspaces you can hire by the hour or by the day. And, you know, I think you mentioned about an app you were talking about the other week, weren't you? I think the show.
Reef. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, I think the set Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 is gone and isn't coming back. But as you say, I think there's so many businesses still working through things. You're not really seeing final decisions. People are still very much kicking around ideas. Obviously, you've got the background then being the challenges around energy and the economy and all those sort of things. So our businesses wanting to make a decision, but actually are being held by other external factors that have an impact on their business.
Now, if anybody's listening and they're wondering why are we talking about this when the show is clearly about ergonomics, it's because it has a major effect on ergonomics. And you know, it's a shame we couldn't get Ben on today, but
yeah,
we'll get him on soon. We will. We're going to share something from Ben's LinkedIn. Yeah. Anyway, because this is an absolute beauty, which was this. So I hope you can all see this here. This is from Ben's LinkedIn this morning. This picture made me laugh, he said. I have to admit, came across some working setups which aren't too far from this. There we go. The poor dog's head being used as a mouse pad.
Do you know what? That was I hadn't until you put that up there. I wasn't looking at the dog's head. I was looking at the guy on the laptop. I've only just clocked that there is a mouse on the dog's head.
It's absolutely priceless. But this is, you know, ultimately this is the problem, isn't it? I mean, the thing with all of these changes to work are that, you know, where are the accommodations happening now? Where is in the process of looking after people, where does that now happen? Because, you know, once upon a time, when you had everybody in the office and occasionally they worked from home, it was fairly straightforward. You could go and you could see them in the office. You could run a whole load of assessments. You could go down the line and you could go, right, we're going to make an assessment of this situation here. And you would know exactly what was there. Right. And you'd know, you know, even thinking about the flexible working thing, the more people that may have to share a desk area over 24 hours or over a week or whatever, because some people are in some days, some people are in another day or whatever, becomes more and more difficult to go, well, what adjustments have they got there at their desk for them? You know? That is ultimately why one of the reasons why I actually think working from home is a successful solution to a lot of things, because I think if people can work from home, and I'm sorry to any office owner that doesn't like me saying this, but if people can work from home, I think one of the key benefits is if you start to actually treat that as their office space. Yeah. And you start to assess it properly and make sure that your staff have got the correct space and environment at home and everything that they need to work comfortably and effectively. All right. And we might need to broaden what's in that assessment as well. Then that space is probably going to be the best space for them, because once you get it right, it ain't going to change.
No. It'd be great to get Ben on again, and I'll message him after they've done this broadcast to see if he can get on in the next couple of weeks, because he will have been at, like with that image there, he'll have been at the coalface potentially going into people's homes who've previously been office workers, then working from home. And it'd be interesting to see, really get into some of the experiences had. What are the good things he's seen? What are some of the shockers that, the picture there we saw, but also the overall attitude of different businesses to, when people are going in and assessing what sort of remit are they being given. Are they almost being given carte blanche to put everything right? Are they being very restricted from a budgetary perspective as to what an assessor can recommend to provide someone from home? So it'd be good to understand that the sort of the varying offerings that people are getting or receiving when they're working from home.
I think one of the biggest issues that I ever came across in terms of assessing people at home as opposed to assessing people in the workplace was space.
Yeah.
That's fundamentally got to be one of the biggest issues. I mean, I've been to assess senior banking officials working from home, and they're working on a farm in a caravan outside of their main building that they live in, on a farm in a cramped caravan space, etc. And you just think, oh my,
yeah.
And then you go, well, where's your office space? And they go, oh, it's there, and you know what that building's like, and it's a multi-million-pound building with the best equipment and the best everything in it and whatever, and you think, all right, so and it's like, well, the two things are so polaric. It's really difficult, and and I can remember going to do a lot of home assessments for DSA as well, and a lot of those spaces, the people didn't have room to swing a cat, and it would be like, well, where am I going to put it? Where am I going to put any equipment or whatever space? Literally. So you look at that picture. We look at those pictures of someone sitting there on a couch with the dog there, the mouse on top of the dog's head, and the laptop down there. But the reality is, for some people working or studying from home, that's the only space they've got.
Yeah.
They really haven't got any other space. And where do we start with that? Should we actually be telling people? It's very difficult, especially when it's work. You can't actually work from home.
No. I was out on Tuesday this week with Mark Rigby, our friend from Online Ergonomics. I was out with him doing some product training on Monday, Tuesday, down in South Wales, and he was saying to the point now, which I didn't realise, that's how small they'd gone. If you think of a traditional office desk was sometimes 1,800 or 1,600 or 1,400, they'd come down to 1,000 mil wide. But he was saying now they're even offering
like this
800 mil wide desks. So 2 and a bit rulers, that's how what's having to be offered to some people to accommodate working from home. And that's where, like you've said, it's really interesting. Working home suits people, but it doesn't suit everyone. So therefore, that's why, that going back to what you said before, Graham, about what people are doing with their offices, there needs to be that flex that actually it can accommodate those people who can work from home. But also, that's where I think the real rise in these sort of co-working spaces is really interesting. So someone doesn't have to go to the office. So it's a real broad church of what people need, and therefore it needs a broad, wide range of solutions for everyone, doesn't it? It isn't a case of you're all working from home. It isn't a case of you're all going to the office. Actually, it'll be, well, this group of people will work from home. This group of people do need to come to the office. This group of people need a little bit of both. This group of people need something a little bit different. So it's having quite a wide lens, doesn't it, really, and making sure you're sort of including everyone in the whole process as to where people will be working going forward.
Well, I think the really interesting thing there is that do you actually need to be somewhere exotic or somewhere on a beach or somewhere in a different country or whatever to effectively be a digital nomad, right? And I think the answer to that is no. I think actually you could, for a lot of people, thinking about the job that they do, if the job that you do fundamentally rolls down to you being able to do it off of a laptop or a tablet anywhere, right, then, you know, and if you don't need much other paraphernalia, I mean, like, you know, when you broadcast from home, you do need microphones and everything else, and that's you're not going to be able to carry that around. No. But if what you're doing is, you know, graphic work or programming or something like that, and all you need is that machine and you, then actually, then these other solutions like working in co-working spaces or whatever is absolutely ideal. I think, you know, because, and then it's down to whose responsibility is it, right? Whose responsibility is it? And you know, because this is now becoming really interesting, because do businesses, here's a great question for you businesses, do businesses check out the environments that their staff are working in if it's a co-working space?
It's interesting that, and there's a co-working space that I know both of us have been sort of following quite closely on LinkedIn, and I've reached out to them this week to say if they can come and join us on the show in one of the future weeks, because I think it'd be really interesting to understand their business, how's it grown, what are they doing, what do they provide for people. But yeah, absolutely, you know, is someone going out and checking that out? I think we know the answer is probably no, but actually, are they obliged to? Should they be doing that from a best practice?
Well, I think so. And maybe, you know, maybe there's a business opportunity there. I've said it before, but I think there's a business opportunity there. You know, if you want a decent restaurant, you go to a Michelin star restaurant, right? Or, you know, you at very least you go to a restaurant which has had a tremendous TripAdvisor reviews and there's, you know, got some kind of star rating or has won awards or whatever. You know, from feedback, you know that that's a good space. Maybe we need to see HSE being more proactive and actually going around and awarding co-working spaces with an award and saying this is 5-star. You know,
I'd love to know what you provided in terms of, if we go back to the whole sort of primary focus of this show is around ergonomics. I wonder what the ergonomic setup is within some of these locations. I wonder if they are providing people with the accessories to make it a more comfortable and productive and healthy workstation, or are they simply getting a desk and a chair and said, crack on?
Well, let's hold that thought whilst we listen to, yet again, our friend Jody, who's going to talk to us about ergonomics, but from the point of view of inclusion and accessibility. So let's listen to that first, and then we can come back to that.
Absolutely. Ergonomic assessment tools really vary, but it's so important that 1, they're accessible, and 2, they are intuitive. People shouldn't need to search for the additional information to help them with their chair setup, with sitting correctly, with how their monitor should be positioned. So make sure that they're actually working for people.
Now, interesting point.
Yeah.
So the point that's being made there, thank you very much, Jody Greer. Check out Be People Smart if you want more information about accessible and inclusive workspaces. But the point that's being made there is it's not just about providing those things. So, you know, if there's a space, and I've been talking to so many people about this recently, why do we not have an app that says, or why don't TripAdvisor, why don't people like TripAdvisor do it, right? Just extend what they've got. So it goes, right, this place is accessible for people who are visually impaired. This place is accessible for someone in a wheelchair. This place is accessible from a, you know, even a dyslexia point of view, you don't have to. You can get the information you want. You can listen to it if you can't read it or whatever. Just list this stuff out, right? And then in terms of the physical space, yes, there's access to a sit-stand desk here, and you can have open access to a sit-stand desk in an open area with the right adjustment for monitor. If you're using a laptop, you get a laptop stand, keyboard, mouse, etc. All of that listed out, and then maybe stuff like, but if you want to do private work, or you're distracted by noise around you because you have autism, etc. Then there's booths available within this space, right? All of this stuff you could just list it out, boom, 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 right? And there could be a mark. There could be a mark for it. Just a great business idea for anyone that wants to do that. Because then people could really, it'd be great for businesses then.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely great for businesses. In fact, businesses, think about this, businesses could actually put money into that. Right. Rather than actually, they don't have to provide the office space anymore. They could work with co-working. They could actually pour money into co-working spaces and make money from developing co-working spaces. In fact, if you've got an office space, why not turn it into a co-working space and make it the most efficient co-working space on the market? Brilliant.
Well, I've thrown the invitation out there, Graham, to one of the organisations we're following who seem to be very successful. So it'd be great if they would accept the invite to come on the show, because I think we could fill a whole show just getting more information on what they're doing. We've got so many questions. We just need an expert to answer them for us, don't we?
Absolutely. Now we're really nearly out of time already. We've really covered virtually everything today. It's been fantastic. A shame we didn't have a guest. Come on, people, come on. It's not difficult.
We've had it with 2 or 3 guests on before. It's great when we get a panel and we've got some interesting stories like we've seen this week, and we can kick them around between a group of experts from different fields.
Yeah, so I just really quickly want to cover this last story, which is there was a ergonomic supplier this morning who was advertising on LinkedIn that they're now taking Klarna.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
is like monthly pay or payments for products split over an agreed period, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, for a start, that to me says that there's something there about the economy at the moment, which is that people can't necessarily afford to buy stuff all in one go. But it also says something to me about maybe who's buying ergonomic equipment, because this to me says that businesses aren't necessarily buying ergonomic equipment, but they're actually letting individuals buy it.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I mean, as you say, it has to be, because that's a service that's available to only to private individuals. So it's interesting. Are people so hacked off that they're just going out and doing it themselves? Has it got to that point that they're 2 years, 2.5 years down the line, and they thought, you know what, I need to go and do it myself? It's a really great offer, actually. I think it's quite interesting as well. I think there clearly must be some demand for it. And let's be honest, if you are an individual at home, and you will know, Graham, far better than I do, but if you want to buy a really good chair, you can spend between 800 up to £1,200 on a really, really top of the range, all singing, all dancing chair.
It could be a half of your earnings for that month. And in which case, can you afford to do it all in one go? If you can eat that out over 3 months, 6 months, or whatever, then that's potentially. Maybe this, I'm just saying, I don't know whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, but maybe there's something for lots of people to learn here, which is that maybe the market is determining that, they do want better quality stuff. They just can't afford to buy it all in one go at the moment. And maybe offering options on that as to how people can afford the better quality equipment is partly the way to go. So I'd love to hear from anyone selling ergonomic equipment out there as well. Are you changing the way that you're selling ergonomic equipment? Are you finding that it is mainly businesses buying it for the individual, or are individuals buying it? If that's the case, are you changing the options for people to buy in order to make it more affordable for them? There we go. All of these things to be discussed next week, when we will have a get. Who are we having on next week?
Well, I've 2 or 3 potentially, Graham. Waiting for a couple of people to confirm, but 2 or 3 potentially from different fields. So we're going to have quite a wide range of conversations.
I think I might chase down some people as well for next week as well. So, brilliant. It's better to have too many than none at all. But I hope you've enjoyed yet another week of Wow Ergonomics. Do check out wowergonomics.com for previous episodes. And also, you will see throughout the week, we're now launching our little Wow shorts as well. I hope you enjoy those. And they're there to remind you, be good with your ergonomics. Until next week. Thanks. Bye for now.
See you next week.